bombing of New York City's World Trade Center was the worst terrorist attack ever.
Through the wreckage and in the water tonight for the remains of 10 sailors.
Friday at two American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania,
11 people were killed. 4 of the victims, between 8 and 16 years old, claimed to have gasoline bombs and were armed with
intelligence holds the Fatah Revolutionary Council responsible.
Suspected of plotting to blow up the United Nations.
Speculation Al-Qaeda and its local allies are responsible, but Indonesia has offered no evidence of that.
Joint Task Force 2, Canada's world-class Special Operations Force, responsible for counterterrorism operations at home and abroad. It is a battle-seasoned, formidably capable unit. Its strength comes from members who are formed through rigorous selection and intensive training into a highly motivated, resourceful, and cohesive force. Although operating in small numbers while deployed, JTF2 can be disproportionately effective. They operate at higher levels than conventional forces, in hostile environments where the margin for error is significantly reduced. When the modern enemy is forced to make a stand and congregate in numbers, as Taliban and Al-Qaeda terrorists did in Afghanistan, they can fight with fanatical intensity. These are the types of forces that JTF2 can engage. At the same time, our domestic security is heightened by its presence in protection, rescue, and counter-terrorism operations against the enemy within. JTF2 has a noble heritage. The unit can trace its action-oriented tradition, reflected in its motto, "Deeds, not words," over half a century. The first Special Service Force, known popularly as the Devil's Brigade, was formed in 1942 as an elite commando unit designed for especially hazardous missions. This joint 1,600-man strong unit, made up equally of Canadians and Americans, was heavily involved in action against crack German forces during the liberation of Italy and spearheaded the final assault on Rome itself. JTF2 carries that special operations tradition forward into the 21st century. Any member of the Canadian Forces can apply for selection to JTF2. Because of the unit's extremely high standards, however, only the best progress to the 7-month Special Operations Assault Course, where they are steeped in the intricacies of counterterrorism techniques. Initially, all candidates undergo a battery of scientifically validated tests designed to assess their suitability. Physical strength and endurance are important, but equally important are professional skills and personal traits, such as integrity, maturity, confidence, mental toughness, a team-oriented attitude, and an enormous sense of self-discipline. At the same time, they have to understand their own limitations. Mission failure for JTF2 is not an option. Missions undertaken at this level have national repercussions. As you might expect, training standards are set high. They cannot be bent, relaxed, or negotiated in any way. If an individual fails to meet and maintain them, training ceases immediately, and the student leaves the facility. On this, there can be no compromise. But for those who do succeed to these special ranks, by far the majority would say it is the most rewarding job of their lives. In training and on operations, JTF2 assaulters may have to endure great hardship, both physical and mental, possibly in very remote locations and in extreme conditions, and still achieve their objectives. These can include missions in areas denied to conventional forces, where they might work in small teams, perhaps very much isolated from their supporting units, and for extended periods of time. It is a highly specialized unit, a scalpel, not a hammer. Elements of the force could be inserted to conduct precision offensive action, gather intelligence, evacuate non-combatants, or rescue hostages. These missions are high value in nature to commit JTF2 troops. To succeed in these conditions, assaulters must have complete faith in themselves, their abilities, and those of their comrades. This is when their disciplined training pays off, helping them to focus on the task at hand and complete the mission. Operational security is paramount. At both the individual and unit levels, JTF2's capabilities could be seriously compromised by the release or disclosure of certain information. Clues about members' identities could endanger both them and their families. Small lapses can accumulate. Little by little, a bigger picture can emerge and provide information that is useful to an enemy. That's when breaches, no matter how small, can have real-life implications for the security of the force. That's why unit security is taken so seriously. Canada's force is unique and requires an especially sensitive approach to unit security. The combined special forces of the United States, for example, totals more than 43,000 members in several units. Canada's special forces are limited to those in JTF2. The consequences of a single breach of security are relatively more serious and potentially more lethal. The Canadian forces must balance the public's right to know about what is being done to protect them and their interests, and simultaneously protect the operational integrity of the unit, as there is no larger special forces community where the anonymity of compromised members could be re-established. In supporting the objectives set for them by the government, the Canadian forces can expect to engage in more special operations in the years ahead. JTF2 is a world-class special operations force, formed from a determined group of extremely capable members of the Canadian forces. In this modern world, full of contemporary dangers to peace and security, they are modern warriors, trained and equipped to deal with modern threats. They are prepared to face many perils and challenges. In the broadest sense, they help protect our way of life and keep Canadians safe. That is their job. It is what they are for and what they do.